Dr. Brianna Rhue is with us again. Brianna, thanks so much for taking time out of your busy day to talk with me again. This is great.
Excited to be back, Eric. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. So we were just chatting a little bit, and you are now officially a year into your solo practice ownership. You were gotten into a partnership before, and now it's all yours. So congratulations on getting a year under your belt. That's awesome. How things changed or shifted for you in the last year as you kind of, it's got to be a different landscape, right? Thinking about partners, and there's just a different types of thinking or level of thinking that goes into when you have partners versus when you're doing it solo as the sole owner. Talk a little bit about that for us, and kind of what that transition has been like, and kind of how things have changed over the past year for you.
Yeah, so now celebrating right at a year of when the loan went through, because it was about a 4 or 5 month process of, getting all the loan documents in, and then now that loan going into effect and being, under this sole umbrella. It's definitely a different mentality, especially in how we were partners before with that buyout. So as a junior partner, then becoming still running everything in the day to day and what I was bringing to the practice, looking back on that 15-year journey, which I recently did. We can talk about that later. Just those different time spans of like being an associate, then being a partner, now in this sole owner, there's like three specific stages. And it is a different mentality of how you look at it on, all right, now we're ready to go beast mode. Like it is mine. I get all of this and reap what you sow versus kind of sharing it, but and we had a very fair partnership. I wouldn't say that we didn't have a fair partnership, but there's a different mentality if you're both not all the way in it on like, how much am I going to grow for this? Because I know I'm going to have to pay on that growth. And is that the right way to look at it? You can kind of negotiate both sides of that coin for
Hmm.
yourself. But now being that sole owner, it's exciting because now I feel I can leverage more in the business than what I was before.
Yeah, very good. And so you're talking a little bit about what you had brought to it over the last 15-year journey. You mentioned that. What were you talking about there? That's
Yeah,
kind
so
of piqued my interest.
I'm big on coaching. As an athlete really my whole life and being a high performer, I get to go to a lot of really cool conferences. I met a coach at one of these conferences where it gave you a time to really work on you because we don't
Mm.
really do that a lot as business owners, and you have to be away from it. It's hard to plan that time in your day. It's hard to plan that time into your week. It's really something you really have to go away and
Mhm.
be with others that are doing the work and around that work. So I was fortunate enough to go to a business outside event, and I met a coach who really put it into like the perspective because he trained football players and he was just speaking my language, and I really really vibed with that. And
Yeah.
so I hired him. We did it's called the hero's journey or the heroine journey,
Mm.
and he spends 2 hours looking at it, and you don't go all the way through like your life, but he put it into three different zones, and then your fourth one is the now. And you look
Okay.
for things that you make mistakes on or recurring themes that keep coming up, and it just is a time to really reflect on what you did. So what I did was how I put it in. I said 2010 to 2015 was when I came out of school, like new grad building, right? 2015 was then I bought into West Broward. So my time frame was 2015 to 2020, had a baby, launched Dr. Contact, or, was helping build Dr. Contact Lens. And then you had 2020 to 2023, which was that more building of Dr. Contact Lens in tech and getting me out there. And then you have the now. And then you look at yourself 3 years from now on what would that self look back and say to you. And then
Mm.
that comes up with your goals and your missions for those coming years.
Okay.
So it was fun to do that. And I don't think we invest enough in things like that as owners and having people look up to you and what they want. You really, really have to keep your mental state healthy. And we don't do that enough.
Yeah, for sure. No, I totally get that. And that's a fascinating exercise. I've done similar things similar to that, but not exactly that. So that's would be a really cool thing to go through. Where
Yeah, his name is
you
Taylor Johnson. So if you want,
shout
he
out
can kind of
Taylor.
put it.
Yeah.
to the show notes. So, but yeah, it was
That's
really cool. It was an investment in myself, and then he gives you a
mhm.
big report after and some work after to do, which was really nice.
Yeah. So that had a big impact for you, like in the now, setting goals to move forward and start executing on it, right? Instead of
Yeah,
like, I think a lot of us get into, we all have the, I don't want to say ability, but that's not quite the right word. But we all have that kind of potential tendency to fall into this kind of like, maintenance mode where we're just, things are good. And I heard recently had somebody explain it to me this way, where it's like your journey of becoming, in your case, a doctor, right, is a bunch of big wins, like all piled up early on in the in that journey, right, in the career, and then all of a sudden you get to your point where you're at, sole owner, independent, and it's kind of like, now what? Like I've had all these like major wins up until that point. It's kind of a whirlwind of quick in the grand scheme of things in the big timeline, right? Bigger, small amount of time, big amount of activity. And now it's kind of like, now what do I do?
huh.
And so like, okay, I made it. Like, where's this
But did
journey
we know
take
that
me
we made
next?
it? Like that was the thing too. Like one thing that came up in that thing was I'm a big proponent, and I think I can speak for a lot of high performers, right? Is we don't want to fail, right? But we also don't know when we've gotten there. So
Yeah.
what does it mean to get there? And if you get there, do you know that you've gotten there? So that was like something that kept like what you were just saying,
Yeah.
that just keeps coming up. Because one thing I also took away from him is you can't always be in a sprint, and neither can
Mm-hmm.
your team. So you still
Mm-hmm.
have recovery phases, right? So right now is almost a recovery phase because it's summer. So everybody's slow, but this is a way to lean into processes. This is a time to lean into your team. Can you close for lunch? Can you take off a half a day and do some work with your, right? Can you
Mm-hmm.
squish patients in? So these are all things now that I feel I can do um, as a sole owner over, yeah, I always got bought in from Dr. Garmizo. Like he was amazing and he would have let me do all this, but it's still now like beast mode, Brianna. Like, let's
Yeah.
go.
It is different. You don't have to check in with anybody, right? It's just kind of like it's your baby to mold as you see fit, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I get it. Very cool. And what you're saying there is like, not always being in a sprint. And that also kind of leads into what we were talking about earlier with just so long-term success in general. Because I think a lot of times we do get in, whether it's early on in the career or like I was just, we were just talking about, or we get into these different times in our career where it just feels like we're sprinting towards whether we've set like a really good goal for ourselves or not. We typically come up with something, right? And we'll work towards it. And then we knock that out. We don't necessarily always make like the full circle alignment to like, is this where I want? Is this also giving me what I want for my personal life? So like we have that professional and personal like integration happening there. But within all of that, it seems like there are these like different sprints and things. And I think a lot of people get into their head that success overall becomes more about those times, those sprints, those big sweeping, times of activity, as opposed to just, I think you didn't really, we didn't really talk about a percentage or anything before, but I think like the majority, I don't even know what percentage to put on it. I'd say the majority of it, having goals is important. Yes, we got to know where we're driving this ship, but while we're executing, I think it's more so just like showing up and doing the right things, the smaller right things consistently over the long time or over the long term,
Yeah,
right?
definitely. Like I was, before I got on this call, I was like, again, looking at my schedule and it's like
Mm-hmm.
stuff is still not getting scheduled right. So if I
Mm.
look at it, there's a $400 mistake. There's another $400 mistake. There's another $400 mistake. And then you put that in the skirt of like, there's 5 days in a week. And then you see
Mhm.
patients, 12 months out of the year times
Yeah.
that, that's 80 grand. So it's like the little things that add
Mm-hmm.
up to that success of your team. So I love there's Dr. Ben Cahill also, he just recently wrote an article where it says like he hates being an optometrist And he's like, I don't hate being an optometrist when I am an optometrist. I hate being an optometrist when I should be working on my business.
Mm,
So it's two separate hats you have to wear. So
sure.
that's too in what Dr. Contact Lens has enabled me to do is really step out of that and, plan for the future, but also do the work and get out
Hmm.
of the excuses that we constantly come up with. Or like tomorrow or the next, little things like that, that we don't spend the time with the team or have that team member that we can rely on to make sure that things are getting executed.
For sure. Well, and just like that little mistake that you were talking about, I mean, they both have like compounding effects, right? It's like compound interest, just
It
with
is.
it's the same concept, right? It's just with actions and processes. It's like that little $400 mistake today may not seem like a ton, and yeah, it's easily recoverable. But if we keep making that, it's going to compound it like just you worked it out to a year,
In
then
10 years, that's a million
you
dollars.
should like work it out to the rest of your career. That number will make you sick.
Well, that's kind of where I was when we got on this call. I was just like,
Yeah.
if you really math this out, and I remember a couple weeks ago, I brought in my two front desk girls, my two front desk team members. They were like bickering, and I brought them back, and I was like, guys, I need you to think as an owner. Like, if you came in and saw the book this way, put your owner's hat on. What
Mhm.
would I say to you? What would you want me to say to you? How
Yeah.
would you say it to your team member? Right? And they're like, I mean, I could see them get into a different mental state
Right.
where you are responsible for this. I need you to be responsible for this. And this is why I need you to be responsible for it. So it's also how you're talking to your team, how you're either pushing them or pulling them. Depends on the day.
Right. Yeah.
I was also reminded like it's easy, you have to pull a donkey, right? You cannot push a donkey.
Okay.
So it's little things come to me all the time.
Yeah.
But again, you have to be open to receive and hear those things.
Mm.
That also bring us into that next thing of a couple of books I've read.
Hmm.
Um, you got to be ready for stuff.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, talk about that. You were telling me about this life-changing book that you read. One of it goes, tell us more about that because I have to run out and buy it. I can't believe I've never taken the time to read it, but after today, I think I might change.
Yeah, I've recommended to a couple friends, couple colleagues, and it's called Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. We've done a book club on it too, so you can kind of go find the recording if you want to.
Oh, cool.
But this book came to me at the proper time. I was just drowning in emails and just executive tasks. And he has a good way to put it where, okay, if you're putting $100 on your time and you're doing a $15 or $20 an hour task, like answering emails or doing little things, you're actually costing your company $80. In that moment, he has you do a time audit. And I made it about 3.5 hours into the time audit. I was like, hire an executive assistant. And Sade, who is my wonderful executive assistant, has been with me now for almost 8 months. It was life changing. And he teaches you something called the email GPS, which is, again, amazing. So it's a very practical book that has all the solutions kind of in it. So you don't have to reinvent
Okay.
the wheel. So I love books like that where it's like, okay, this is a great
Mhm.
idea and concept, and now I have to figure out how it fits into my life. It's not one of those. It's like,
Oh,
do
okay.
this, you'll be successful, and this is your outcomes. So yeah, you have to be able to ask for the help. And then in hiring Sade, she used to work at my practice and she was one of the floater people. She knew everything, front desk, tech,
Mm.
checking in, checking out, insurance, all of it. And then she went into real estate and then came back. So she's still doing her dreams and pursuing that, but she's in this capacity with me. And one thing I learned from her in knowing me, both Brianna at or Dr. Rhue and then Brianna at Dr. Contact Lens, what I was missing in being a leader. And so
Mm.
she helped me understand some of those blind spots on what your team really is craving from you is your time. And is as much as you have to put so much emphasis on your growth path in whether it's through reading or mentorship or whatever it is, you're the leader in your practice. So you have to get other leaders around you. And what they were craving and missing from me was me really leading them. So it's the time, it's the check-ins, it's the seeing them as humans, not just somebody that makes you this money and that you have to pay. It's not transactional like that.
Yeah.
So that was a big realization and growth moment for me. But you have to have space for that. Because really in your practice, I hate to say it, but a lot of times you're like the smartest person in the room, which is a very, very bad place to be
Yeah.
constantly. So that's where I seek out conferences where I'm around different environments and different people, continue to learn, not just optometry, not just CE,
Hmm.
um, but really life.
Life and personal development. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. That's great. Well, I love the idea of an email GPS. I mean, I love everything you're saying too, but that's like my ears really perked when I said that. Well, when you said that. But so it sounds very practical, like you were saying, and practical solutions. And it sounds like for you that and combining that with which led you to hire the executive assistant, and now is in turn making you. I mean, that whole thing is turns you into a better leader. It's giving you the capacity to become a better leader, right? Just from implementing those couple of things. I think that's first off very insightful, and I think for most of us, I say for most people in like any sort of professional service, right? Because I'll lump myself in with this when I'm talking about this too. It's like once you get the core, like we all have like a core, whether it's technology, core team to like start, either start or maintain generating revenue and actually having a business, right? Once you get kind of beyond that stage, I think the next hire for like majority of people is that executive assistant to start taking some of those tasks off your plate because that's what 99% of us will get overwhelmed with moving forward. It's not just email, but it's all the little minutia things that pop up that you got to deal with that if they were just handled, think about how that would work or how that would
Yeah,
change
I
your
mean,
life.
it's been phenomenal. And the
Hmm.
people that have implemented it also around me, sometimes they'll call me and they're like, damn you, I can't believe you recommended this book. So be careful what you wish for
Yeah.
because you just might get it.
Be ready
Is
to
like the theme
receive
song.
is
This
how.
theme song. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, because had I not read that book, like had she called me, let's say 3 weeks earlier, like looking for
Hmm.
that position, I couldn't have said yes, and I wouldn't have said yes. So it
Yeah,
also is giving yourself the chance to take off some blinders,
sure.
and that's what reading really does for me, or podcasts like this, sharing ideas.
For sure. You've mentioned more than once about things about like mindset and staying in the right mental space and leading from that position. And it's kind of like, okay, I get doing events like this or going to conferences, but like some days we're in the weeds too, and we
Yeah.
still have to like have some way to maintain that level of that mindset state that we need to be in.
Hmm.
Any Do you use any type of like process or routine to number one, help you like get in there in the mornings or before the start of your workday, let's say, maybe at the very start of your day? And then do you have any, just always curious about this, do you have any like ways to like find yourself throughout the day moving out of it and then kind of a way to snap back into it? Anything like that resonate with any of
Yeah,
your?
there's always an ebb and flow.
Hmm.
I found yoga in 2010. Yoga's been a big part of my growth personally, professionally, physically, emotionally, all the things. Yoga just really spoke to me.
Okay.
But also doing, like, again, getting exposure at different conferences to whether it's like breath work is something that really has resonated with me. So breath
Hmm.
is the first thing that comes into us when we come into this world, and it's the last thing to leave. And I talk to my patients a lot about this too, in myopia management, and all of us just glued to these things all the time.
Yeah.
Is, every 20, 25 minutes, look far away, roll your shoulders back, take a couple of deep breaths, and
Mhm.
blink your eyes. Like, give yourself a mental physical break. So Finian Kelly is another person that I met and have followed. So he does something called intentionality. Just his book was just released,
Okay.
and he also has like an app. where it's just he talks a lot about money and mindset and all these, because you need your personal needs have to be like, like you got bills to pay. We all do. And we all have this thing and this envisioning of retirement. Like I just asked my mom, she's been retired for 3 years. My dad's been retired for 8. And I'm like, Mom, what is it like to be retired? So I think we've almost been brainwashed to think retirement is like this big thing coming. And it's not. Again, it's all the little things. So, like, are you waking up and living the life that you want to? Yeah, not every day is rainbow and butterflies. I'm not telling you that it is, but you have full control of that. And as an optometrist specifically, like, you get to be in the driver's seat, and a very cool driver's seat. So be thankful when you walk in your door that patients are calling you. Be thankful that your staff is stressed because patients want all these things from you. Like, that's a freaking gift, man.
Mm.
So again, it's just looking for the little things day in, day out, whether that's through colleagues, again, meetings, apps you're listening to. As a busy mom of 2 boys, like 8 and 3, like there's a lot on there. As a wife, as you as a human, like you got to fill your cup. And you have to ask for help in doing that too.
Very good. Very good. Well, I know we're getting close to time, so I want to be respectful of your time and thank you for all the insights and the sharing and the knowledge and you've been able to share with us here this afternoon. In closing, is there anything else we didn't hit on that you think would be really great for our listeners to know, or a little concept or tip or piece of advice you want to share?
I think in our industry, we're just constantly squashed. And we have the power. And I think in things like this, the abundant OD, like all of that, like it is abundance. And you just have to keep making the pie bigger. It's not this slice is for you and this slice is for them. Like, learn the game, play the game, invest in yourself, invest in technology, invest in your people, invest in yourself. Like we're all in it. We're all just lifing. It's
Yeah.
hard, but you get to do it. And some days
Yeah.
are easier than others. So just, yeah, I think you have to give yourself more than conferences of just being an optometrist and the CE. That's so limiting. And so one of my gifts that I've been given is I've been able to now go to like outside of industry conferences. So
Mhm.
you have to seek that stuff out, but you have to invest in it.
Yeah,
And then that continues to open other doors. So it's all there for you. You have to look for it, and you have to get into it.
for sure.
So
I love that so much because I think, yeah, you're right. I've seen it in a lot of professions, and optometry is no different. Accounting's the same. It's like we have a hard time. We have a hard time with that at times, getting out of like going to the specific industry conferences, and that there are things that we can learn even about our business, but even in a broader sense about like you're talking personal development that are outside of our professional circles, right? And our professional associations. But yeah, you got to make the conscious effort to seek those out. And some willingness, I think, because you go into those things, or at least I have in the past, where I didn't always know, I definitely didn't know everything I was going to pull out of that other experience, that outside the accounting industry for me experience, right? And some things were a surprise. And so you don't always know exactly what you're going to get, but you have to trust that, you're going to somewhere with people who are doing great things and you want to do great things as well. And so you belong there and, just trust in all of that. And you'll find and hear what you need to, when the time is right, and you'll latch onto it like we've been talking about, and it'll be a life changer or a game changer for you. So
yeah,
I think
Eric, I
that's
think one thing in closing that
Mhm.
comes to mind really quick is a good story. I got invited to a dental conference, and I got to go on stage and speak to like the owner of the conference. And so again, I was like the only optometrist in a sea of dentists and
Mm.
consultants. And oh my God, what an industry. Like we all want to be dentists, but I'm so glad I didn't become a dentist. Love you, dentists, like out there. But I was having my own like problem with like stress and like TMJ that I'm going through right now. And so I had gone literally to the dentist the day before the conference. And then when I went to the conference, really my goal is to like connect with like really connect with like 1, 2, 3 people. And you'll find your circles as you're going around, right? And you connect with people and you don't connect with people or whatever. So I walk up to a table and there were like 3 or 4 dentists around, right? And I look at one of the one of the guys' name tags, and I was like, "Why does that look familiar?" And so we got talking, and I was like, "I have a dental question. Like I'm going through this shit, right? I like hate to like I hate when people are like, "Hey, I have this eye problem," and I was like, "I hate to do this to you, but like seriously, I'm like, this is really really bad." So I was looking online, and I found like a supplement, and he's like, "Well, there's a couple things you can do. There's like this supplement." I was like, "Oh," I'm like, "You're Dr. Rad," and he's like, "Oh my God, how do you know that?" Like first off. And it was a supplement that like came on my like when I was searching it. And
Okay.
here I am a day later, like with him. So
Wow.
that's the opportunities that all kind of come full circle. And then you just have these instant connections that now will last a lifetime. So
Sure.
that's what, getting out of your comfort zone does. Um, when you allow things like that to happen. So kind of bring all that full circle and that energy
Mhm.
of excitement. um, yeah, like you just gotta do it.
As one of my prior mentors once said, everything you've ever wanted is just outside your comfort zone, right?
It's true.
Yeah, so take the step. Brianna, thank you so much. This has been great catching up with you, and thanks for all your time. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks.